Hello and welcome to the Divine Shoulder Tabs channel. This channel was created because I believe that we are all guided beings and have access to supernatural abilities. Call it God, call it universe, call it intuition, call it a sixth sense, call it whatever you'd like. But most of us have experienced that intuitive feeling, a gut instinct, that little voice or idea that comes out of the blue. This channel will highlight these experiences with the hope of bringing awareness to these divine shoulder taps so that we can act upon them. I believe that this will offer us a better way of life. On today's episode, our first episode ever, I'd like to introduce you to one of my best friends and an inspiration for this channel. Leanne is a mom, a wife, a multi-business entrepreneur, and honestly one of the smartest women that I know. From the day that we met, we knew we were supposed to be friends. Even though we only lived in the same place for a short amount of time, we have been friends for over 20 years, and we've kept it close despite living states away from each other. She's been a rock in my life in so many ways, and I'm so excited for this conversation. I hope that you will enjoy.
Lots of shoulder taps out. You want me to hear my crazy shoulder tap? I don't know if you've ever heard it. If I'd had a spiritual encounter that was rough. I really don't know why that had happened. And uh it was very dark and it was at night and I woke up and it created this fear in my being. And I've been a believer my whole life. And so I was always, there's a devil in every bush. And so I just became fearful for years. Like, I'd go to bed at night and be like, oh, I hope that doesn't happen again. And whatever. It was odd. So I'm living in Texas working for a company that sells wind turbines. And I covered 9 states. So people would call in. And one day, this guy calls in, he's a Messianic Jew. And I'm like, I love Messianic Jews. They come from all the cool traditional, they're God's chosen people. They were Jews. And now they've come over to say, yes, Jesus is it's just such a great conversation. And so he called in. I don't even know how he got on it, probably because of his name. Can't even remember his name right now. And so we had talked. He had wanted some kind of wind turbines at a project. I don't remember what it was. And this is a total tap. And so he called in again and he said, you know what, Leanne? I said, what's that? And he said, I was told to tell you to stop being scared. And I'm like, what am I scared of? I don't remember his name, like Josiah or something. Gosh, I wish I could remember it. And I was like, yeah, I do have some fears. And he was like, oh, I know. I've been told like that what happened to you, you were not taken, you were not killed, and that will never happen to you again. And I was like, that's good to know. I will sleep a lot better. So we're having this conversation. And I'm like, how would you even know that about? We're on a phone. I've never met you. You don't know anything about me. And he was like, yeah, I just know that you have great things ahead of you and you're supposed to do stuff. And this fear is just stopping you all the time because you're always scared of what's going to hit you from the side. I was like, I am. Like, I'm terrified to just try those things. And he was like, yeah, you need to get over it. And then I never talked to him again.
So,
Those are
what?
just,
How did that change you?
well, then I wasn't scared anymore because I was like, well, if that's going to happen, and where was God and why wasn't I protected? And he did tell me, and that was the end. I guess that's the rest of the story, Paul Harvey, is he goes, the reason that you went through that is you're an independent person. And I am, always have been. You know that. You and I are just fiercely independent, and we have to learn things the hard way. And he goes, the reason that you learn that is because you always thought you were fighting the bad guy. You are powerless against evil, literally powerless. You will never win that battle. But when you have the Holy Spirit and you give it to God to go, this is a really big battle and I can't fight it, you have to learn to hand those things over and go, this is bigger than me. I'm going to ask for your help and you're going to fight that battle. That's what I learned out of that because I was always like, sword out. I'm going to come get you. I'm going to fight. Well, I lost that night bigly, bigly. And he was like, yeah, stop doing that. Just give that over. Why are you trying to win those battles? Those battles are bigger than you. And that changed my life. Changed the course of my life. I'm 54 now. I was probably in my 30s. And I was like, oh, okay. So when I wake up and I haven't had anything like that happen to me again.
So, what do you think? Like, what would have happened had he not called you and said
I
those
don't
things to
know.
you?
I don't know.
I
I'd have
mean,
just kept fighting, I guess.
yeah, and he was guided. I
Hmm.
mean, he more or less said that in the conversation. Like, I was more or less guided.
I was told to tell you.
I was told to tell you. Yeah,
Because out of the blue, we haven't talked about anything. He was like, he just knew. And
yeah.
like, I remember hanging up the phone and just staring at the phone. I had a headset at the time, so I was on the phone all the time. And I remember just staring at that headset, like, what in the world just happened? That was so crazy. And then I wish I knew where he was. Or maybe not. He was just sent to do that, or for whatever that tap was,
Is these things happen to us all the time,
all
but
the time. And we're
do
not
we
paying
listen to
attention
them? That's
because
the
it's
part.
noisy. It's so
Yes,
noisy.
yes, it's noisy. So we have to
Yeah.
learn to, cut out the noise and learn to listen to these taps and be able to bring them to the other person, because that other person or that situation or whatever, it may, like you said, it altered your life forever.
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 Hmm. That's so long. I remember I was in my office because we lived at Ridgeview at the time. And I was in my office and just working. And I was like, you need to call Andrea. Something's not right. That's all I remember. Something's not right. And I thought, well, that's odd. I mean, I hadn't talked to you probably any 6 months, maybe, or texted.
Yep.
And so I sent over the text. What did it say? Do you remember?
You didn't send me a text.
I called you?
You called me.
Oh,
That
that's serious.
yes. So,
I didn't know. I never call anybody
well, and
ever.
that's exactly what I tell when I tell this story. I tell it like that because we never talk on the phone.
No,
Very rarely. Maybe twice a
I want
year.
to see you in person.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we do text. We do text a lot. Even back then, 5 years ago, we were texting all the time. And I'm sitting watching my 17-year-old in a hospital bed, intubated, not knowing what her diagnosis is. And I had not told anyone except for my immediate family because just things were happening so quickly. And all of a sudden, my phone rings and it's you. And my first thought is, oh my gosh, there's something terribly wrong. She never
Why
calls
is
me.
Leanne calling? Yeah.
And when I picked up the phone, I was like, hey, like, is everything okay? Almost. I don't know if I said that, but that was like, hey, like what's going on? And you're like, I I just felt like I needed to call you, like something was wrong. And then I just started crying because and then I told you what was going on, and it was so comforting and so affirming that you would hear it and then you would act upon it. And
Hmm.
it just made me feel like I wasn't so alone in
Well, the
that.
God of the universe was paying attention
Yes.
for you.
Yes.
For you. Again, I was just a vessel. I didn't know what I was, I didn't know that. I think of more importantly the times that I didn't call people. And so it's funny that that happened because I have to be intentional. You have to be intentional. We all hear it. We
Yeah.
all hear them on a weekly basis. You need to call, you need to call, you need to reach out, you need to send a card, you need to do something.
Yeah.
And then we don't do it because we're busy. And how do we slow that down to hear the Holy Spirit guide us?
Yeah.
Because that was all spiritual. We didn't know it.
100%. We're
We
we're
didn't
all
know it.
connected. We're all
Hmm.
connected. So has there been a time where you hadn't listened to it? You were
Oh,
getting
all the
shoulder
time. I
tapped?
had one and it's recent. Ugh. So I had a friend and she wasn't healthy. She lived in Colorado, and then we helped them sell their house. They moved to Florida. They had kids down there. And she was in her 60s, but really unhealthy. And so over the last few years, I'd send a card or I'd text or whatever, but then she lost her vision. So she couldn't text really. And last fall, it was like last November or December, I was like, God, I gotta call Dawn. I gotta call Dawn. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I was like, something's not right with Dawn. Something's not right. And I sent her a birthday card in March. I think her birthday was in March. And her husband texted me and said, You must not have heard that Dawn passed away the end of December. And I was like, Oh. And he
Oh,
was, yeah. And he was like, Thank you for always, checking up on her. And he just sent me a nice text. And I was like, I didn't know. I didn't know. And here's the weird thing. About a month before I sent that card, I actually looked her name up. Like, I just was like, something's not right. I wonder if I should have picked up the phone, but then it wouldn't have mattered. She had already passed away. And that's just a really bad mess up on my part. Should have done it, heard it, knew it, knew it. You
yeah.
hear it all the time. It's just training. It's Holy Spirit training.
So, having had that experience, recent experience that you didn't listen, what has that taught you?
To pay attention, to just do it. When you get a shoulder tap that says, have you
Yeah.
check in on them.
I have one last question.
Uh,
Um, I want to know if you believe that a non-believer can hear these shoulder taps.
Absolutely.
So,
Because the Holy Spirit is working. The goal is that you have a relationship with Jesus Christ. That's the goal. And the Holy Spirit is out there. I don't remember the Bible verse where it says, so and so planted the seed, so and so watered, so and so reap the harvest, right? That's what we're all supposed to do. Sometimes you planted seeds that got, and then somebody else watered that seed. And
yes.
eventually, and people have choice. We all have a choice whether we go, yep, I'm in, I'm a believer, or I'm not. And people, they ignore or they accept that. And so I think a non-believer is going to feel that and not really maybe know what it was.
Mhm.
Don't you feel that way? Or
Oh,
do you
yes,
feel
I
different?
absolutely feel that way. I feel that it, regardless of religion, regardless of your race, where you
Yeah.
are in the world, all of that, I believe that we all get these divine shoulder taps. They come to us in different ways. It could actually even be for yourself. Because I've had so many people tell me, like, oh yeah, I woke up one morning and I was just like, ooh, I can't go to work that way, my normal way. I should go this other way to,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
ended up that there was a big accident that they would have been right in the middle of had they done that. So yeah, I
Or
believe
you
that
hear something. Have you ever been driving down the highway and you hear like move over or whatever? Like there's no
yes.
voice here.
Yes,
And
exactly.
okay, and you pull over and then something crazy happens,
Exactly.
that there's just a spiritual protection around you. And
What would be an advantage of having people be aware of these shoulder taps more and be aware that, and act upon them? What do you think that that would do to our world?
basic humanity,
Basic human.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
I,
looking out for other people. And when you're told to go be nice in the subway and tell somebody they're pretty that day, then get off your butt and go tell somebody
yeah.
they're pretty that day because we miss them all
Yeah.
day. If you don't carry out these shoulder taps, if you're not doing it, if you're not going out and telling somebody they look beautiful today, or you're not calling to go, what's wrong? Is there something wrong? I was supposed to call you. Do they stop coming?
Mm,
Like, do you
yeah.
turn them off where then the spirit says, I'm not investing in that anymore because I've given you all this opportunity and you've chosen to squander it. And so does it then go to somebody else? You find that out for me and then I'm going to
I
listen
will
to
find
that.
that out for you. That's an excellent question. I
Mm-hmm.
I don't know because gosh, I would never even want that to happen. I'm just like,
No,
bring it
like you were
on.
such a failure that I'm not giving you these options anymore.
Yeah,
And I didn't think anything of that. And it's funny because you bring it up because it was impactful. That day was
yeah,
impactful. And so now when you bring it up and just hearing it repetition, it's such a good reminder that we all go, okay, slow your roll, look around, pay attention,
yeah,
maybe look around once in a while, look up from your phone,
yeah.
see what's going on, make eye contact with people.
Oh, exactly. Exactly. Well, and maybe another question too would be, we keep saying, "Oh, I heard this." So for those that are going to be listening to this, like, what does that mean? That when you say, "Oh, I heard this," is it a feeling? Can you actually
Audible.
hear it? Is it audible? Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't hear somebody tell me, and I don't think you did either. You just That's weird. That's weird stuff. I don't know.
Yeah. For me, they just get plopped into my consciousness, and it
Yeah.
has nothing to do with what's going on at that moment. And so it's a thought
Yeah.
most times, but I've aud- audibly heard it too.
Yeah. I have
So,
too. And you have to also encourage people, another show that
mhm,
if you do something, you're not always going to get somebody that goes, I needed to hear that someday. Sometimes people are going to look at you like you're a crackpot.
yeah,
And you're like, well, that was dumb. Shouldn't have done that. Shouldn't
yeah,
have told the lady she was pretty. Where she was like, you're a creeper. It
yeah,
could have gone very different, but you were told to do it and you acted out on what you were told.
right,
And that's the answer, right? You were told. Now that may impact them tomorrow or 5 years from now or never. I have no idea, but you were told to do it and
exactly.
you did it. And you can't do these things for gratification. We live in such a instant gratification world. You can't do it to go, oh, if I do this, I'm going to get warm fuzzies.
Yeah,
Nah, maybe
no.
not.
So I think another lesson to all of this is that we have to not be so caught up in like what we might look like, because
Or what we get.
or what we get, because it's not about
Yeah,
us. A lot of times when we get these divinely
it's
guided
not about us.
messages,
No.
it's not about us. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And to be careful about that. And to be careful. Like, don't go out doing crazy things because you think you heard something.
yeah,
You have to test some of that too. You have to test to make sure that that seems like a good thing. But a lot of time it's so instant. I got to call. But
right.
I'm going to be better because of you. I'm going to be better. And
Yay.
I'm going to make those phone calls. And emails and texts are fine. I think texts sometimes when you're thinking about somebody and you shoot over, hey, everything okay? And then you get a text back that's 14 pages long and you're like, probably should have called.
Yeah,
Like, that's so much. Or, and then you do pick up the phone because
yeah,
I've done that, gotten that text back and just called right away to go, wow,
yeah,
that was a lot to put in a text. How about we just have this conversation? Because
right.
something told you, and you just have to listen.
Too many coincidences all put together is not a coincidence. So
Mm-mm.
once you're able to like really wrap your head around that, then you're
Yeah.
like, okay, there's something bigger that's moving
Yeah.
here.
Yep.
So
I love it.
I
I
love
love
it.
it. I mean,